At first glance, she was a frail woman from a small village in the Balkans, and yet she predicted events that shook the world long before they happened. She foresaw the September 11 attacks, the sinking of the Russian submarine Kursk, and the assassination of Indira Gandhi. She also spoke about events centuries into the future, including the end of human civilization in the year 5079. This is how most people see Baba Vanga, as a strange elderly woman who has seen things. But that's just the tip of the iceberg in the incredible life of the phenomenon Vanga. This is the story of how someone who hit rock bottom more than once is remembered forever. Because Grandma Vanga's gift found her in darkness, in pain, and in silence, where most people wouldn't hear anything. Ancient traditions have always honored those who can see beyond the visible. High in the mountains of Tibet, monks sit quietly for days, without speaking, just pondering the world mentally. In the Amazon's deep forests, shamans drank sacred brews to enter altered states of consciousness. In the deserts of North Africa, Berber mystics read and orient themselves by the wind, and in ancient Greece, the oracle of Delphi inhaled sacred smoke and spoke truths that no one else could see. Even in more recent times, such people still appear in history. Edgar Cayce is one of the great examples, the blind prophet. He would give entire diagnoses while he was asleep. Nostradamus wrote poems that some believe predicted events for centuries. Wolf Messing claimed that he could read minds and influence decisions. All of them have been called gifted phenomena, strange individuals, contactees ahead of their time. It is obvious that if we delve a little deeper, more thoroughly into history, we will realize that Baba Vanga was not the only one with visions. But her story, how it began, how it developed, and how it reached the lives of thousands is unlike any other. And in order to understand her visions, or rather to try to peek into her mind from a different perspective, it's best to start from the very beginning. Welcome, foremost from eternity. Subscribe. Hello everyone. Before we continue with the special Baba Vanga episode we prepared for you, I would like to welcome those of you who want to have a closer contact with us, with me and Valya, with INRA. We have launched what we call INRA membership, which is on our website, down in the description. You gain entry to a private Telegram community. Every month there is a webinar where absolutely all participants can join and share their stories. And in this way, we create a space where you won't be judged, where you can feel calm, safe, and comfortable to be yourself and to share a part of yourself with like-minded people, with people who are walking together with all of us on the path of knowledge. We have made this for all of you, and we thank those who have already joined. It really means a lot to us. In this way, you help us to be able to make such productions and to do what we do best, and we can do it in the most natural way. Thank you to everyone, and I wish you an enjoyable viewing. Her name is Vangelia Pandava Gushtarova, born Dimitrova. She was born on January 31, 1911 in the small town of Strumitsa. At that time, still under the fading shadow of the Ottoman Empire. She was born prematurely in the 7th month, by the way. Yes, that's small. so fragile that even the village midwives didn't believe she would survive. She had webbed fingers and toes, irregularly shaped ears, and a cry that didn't come for days. The family wrapped her in an ox wool shawl and placed her next to the stove, praying to the warmth and to time, to do what medicine could not. Some say that her true birth happened weeks later, on a cold March night when she let out her first real cry, as if life itself had finally agreed to enter her. It's interesting, maybe that moment was the first sign that something special would guide her life. According to tradition, the name of the newborn should be given by the first passerby on the street. She did, but the first woman who passed by suggested Andromaca, and the grandmother refused because that name was a tragic name from an ancient myth. The next woman crossed herself and said Evangelia. As good news, this later remained as Vangelia, and later simply Vanga. But in Vanga's early life, there wasn't much good news. Strumica was no ordinary city. It was full of people constantly changing, a crossroads where Slavs, Turks, Greeks, Albanians, Jews, and Romanians would bump into each other, pass by, and constantly cross paths. During Vanga's childhood, the city belonged to 3 different countries. Even the land itself seems confused about what it actually possesses. She loses her mother Paraskiva before she is able to form her earliest memories. And before she turns 5, her father, Pande, a poor peasant and war veteran, is called to serve again, this time in the Bulgarian army during the First World War. Little Vanga is left in the care of a Muslim neighbor named Asanica. While many Muslims have already left the town after the Balkan Wars, Asanica stays. In this quiet home of incense and whispered prayers, where Islamic chants blend with Orthodox icons and folk incantations, did Baba Vanga's senses begin to open? She began to dream. Spirits, strangers, events that had not yet happened. While the other children played house or teachers, Vanga played healer. She would gather herbs from the yard and tie them with string, prescribing them to her dolls as some kind of magical and sacred medicine. She told her friends to drink water that she had blessed. She insisted that lost things could be found if you just close your eyes. Her father even scolded her. It's not good to play blind, but she still did it. And maybe that was also a kind of prophecy, because years later she really lost her sight. When her father returns after the war, he brings a new woman with him, Tanka, a tall, strong woman with long hair and concealed strength. Though the marriage is arranged, Tanka becomes Vanga's true mother and has 3 more children. For a while, the family seemed to rise out of their poverty, but peace in the Balkans did not last long. Pandi's previous service in the Bulgarian army made him a target for the newly formed Yugoslav government. He was arrested, interrogated, and his land was confiscated. The family fell into poverty once again. In 1923, when Vanga was only 12 years old, an event occurred that changed her life forever. That day, she was in the field near her home with her relatives. What followed, however, was unexpected, sudden, and terrifying. A powerful storm struck, suddenly lifting her and hurling her across the field. Naturally, she was found unconscious, covered in dirt, with her eyes full of dust and bruises. At first, the injury seemed minor, but her vision did not return. Her eyes remained swollen and painful. In the following months, she underwent several treatments, first in local hospitals and later in larger cities like Skopje and Belgrade. None of the surgeries were successful. Her condition worsened until she became completely blind. This was a turning point in Baba Vanga's life. At just 12 years old, she was already living in poverty, without a mother and with a father who struggled to provide for the family. Now she was facing a life full of darkness. Her family sold everything they could to afford medical care, including their last animals and furniture. But nothing helped. After it became clear that her eyesight could not be restored, Vanga was sent to a school for the blind in Zemun, Serbia in 1925. At that time, she was only 14. For the first time, she experienced something like stability there. The school taught her how to live with her condition and gave her practical skills that she would use for the rest of her life. She learned Braille, sewing, cooking, and weaving. She also studied music and even learned to play the accordion, and it turned out she was talented. Zemun became her refuge. This was the place where she was no longer just the blind girl from Strumica. She became capable, educated, and respected. For her, this was a time of growth and self-discovery. She began to see and understand her strengths, and despite her disability, she proved to herself and to others that she could live independently and make a meaningful contribution to the society around her. Can you imagine how hard it must have been for her to find her way and direction when, so to speak, the world had already taken nearly everything from her? During her stay at the school, Vanga formed a close relationship with a young man named Dimitar, who was also blind. They shared similar experiences and supported each other emotionally, and over time their relationship deepened into love. They talked about marriage and building a life together. It was a quiet and modest relationship, but it was sincere. However, in 1939, everything changed again. Vanga receives news that her stepmother has passed away unexpectedly. Her younger brothers and sisters are still children, and they were left alone. Without hesitation, she leaves school and returns home. She gives up her dreams of marriage and a new life with Dimitar. Instead, she chooses to take responsibility for the household. It was a difficult decision. This meant going back to poverty and responsibility with no guarantee of help. But for Vanga, family came first. She took on the role of a parent, managing the household, raising her brothers and sisters, and doing whatever she could to keep the family together. Her house was small and poor. It was damaged during the earthquakes of 1928. The neighbors helped restore parts of the home, but overall the conditions remained harsh. In the winter of 1939, she fell ill, again, seriously. Years of overwork, malnutrition, cold. She was bedridden with pleurisy. That's an inflammation in the area of the lungs. She lay for weeks without access to proper food and medicine. The local community even started collecting money for her funeral. Everyone believed she wouldn't survive. But one morning, Vanga got up. She stood up by herself. She went into the yard and took a broom, and she started sweeping. According to her sister, she only said one thing: "Hurry up, people are coming." From that moment on, she was no longer the same. Many saw her physical recovery as a miracle. But more importantly, this marked the beginning of the Great Mission. And so, at the end of the 1930s, 2 decades after she lost her sight, the people around her began to notice unusual things. She started talking about places she had never been to, people she had never met, and events that had not happened yet. At first, it started with lost objects. A neighbor's sheep, or for example, a missing wedding ring. She describes exactly where to look, often with very precise details, and in most cases, the objects were found. In 1939, the year when World War II began, Baba Vanga said she had a dream in which she was visited by a white horseman.
A man stood before me. He was silent. A man stood before me and said who he was, but we won't tell you. We're telling you, or which man stood and said who he is. A man stood up and the war begins tomorrow. You will be. You say?
Well, who's your Columbrio?
She describes this moment as her calling. It was something that had to be done. From that moment, Vanga began to receive people in her small home. At first, it was only neighbors and relatives until she got used to it. But after that, People from nearby villages came with personal problems, missing loved ones, lost jewelry, unspoken fears. Vanga holds an object. While listening to them, she would usually pick up a lump of sugar and start talking. She didn't even need any questions. When World War II began to reach the Balkans, more and more people started to visit her. They no longer asked only about lost things. They asked about their sons, their husbands, their brothers. Is he alive? Will he return? Where is he buried? Witnesses claim that she falls into something like a trance.
It happened very suddenly. So as we're sitting and talking, she suddenly goes silent, turns pale, her face changes, and she starts speaking in a sort of chanting way.
However, her accuracy shocked many, and whether people believed her or not, they are becoming more and more. She became famous in Strumica and beyond. Farmers, widows, soldiers, and military officers lined up outside her small house. In 1942, a man named Dimitar Gushcherov came to see her. He is a soldier from the Macedonian region, whose brother died in the war. Like many others, he asked Vanga where the body was, but the two of them formed a connection, and very soon after that, they got married. About this meeting, Vanga says that as soon as he came, her voice told her, "This is your husband." Vanga and Dimitar moved to Petrich. The move, of course, marks a new phase in her life. In Petrich, she had a home, a husband, and a growing reputation, but her life was far from peaceful. Dimitar, like many soldiers of that time, suffered from war trauma, and over time he turned to alcohol and his health deteriorated. Relatives say that from the very beginning they didn't act like husband and wife, but simply lived together.
No, they weren't husband and wife. They didn't live together, no. So what was the nature of their cohabitation? I can't tell you. You will tell how, for example, let's say Mijni Kubala from, yes, she is not foolish as a wife, nor is he as a husband or as someone else. It's not foolish at all between them.
Despite with her insight and inner strength, Vanga does not try to fix her husband's problems. Instead of trying to change what cannot be changed, she chooses to focus on what she believes is her true calling. God gave me this gift and will choose who receives it next. Nothing depends on me. Gradually, your word in Petrich is turning into a quiet place of hope and mystery. Until 1947. People traveled from all over Bulgaria until 1947, some even from other countries, bringing a lump of sugar, standing quietly and waiting. But what is behind that lump of sugar? That it turns it into a key, into a portal to people's lives. Baba Vanga believed that sugar, especially in the form of cubes, could absorb a person's energy and hold it. And now we know that this happens in its crystal structure. Before visiting her, people were instructed to put a sugar cube under their pillow for at least one night. After that, she would hold it in her hand during the session and gently press it with her palm, as if to hear, to amplify the signal. Vanga never relied on questions during these sessions. She would just start talking, often directly, with superpersonal details, illnesses, or future events. For her, the sugar cube acted as a silent witness, carrying the emotional and physical imprint of the person, like a bridge between their world and hers. Two realities that intersect and form what is called a frequency portal. And the sugar cube is the bridge. Subscribe. Although science couldn't explain what was happening back then, today we know that the human brain is capable of remarkable adaptation. When someone loses their sight, especially at an early age, the brain doesn't just stop processing visual information, it readjusts itself. Studies from Harvard and Georgetown confirm that the occipital lobe, which is usually responsible for vision, can take on new roles in blind people. For example, it can help them process sound, memory, even complex mental images. In some cases, the brain develops alternative forms of perception. But this extraordinary perception of Vanga could not be explained only by the plasticity of the brain. Naturally, there is another theory which suggests that a certain organ in the brain, which we have talked about many times, is responsible for the contact between the material and immaterial spheres. This organ is the pineal gland. This small structure, which looks like a pine cone, is nestled deep in the center of the brain. It is known to regulate circadian rhythms through the secretion of melatonin, but in many esoteric traditions, a much more important function is attributed to it. According to René Descartes, the French philosopher, the pineal gland is the seat of the soul and the place where we feel the deepest connection with the source. The interesting thing, which you already know about the pineal gland from our other episodes, is that it enlarges and activates the moment we close our eyes and no longer detect the surrounding light. From this point of view, it is a kind of transformer, capable of transmitting information between the energetic and material worlds. And in the case of Baba Vanga, this idea starts to sound strikingly accurate. Some researchers suggest that when a person is deprived of visual information, that is, we don't see with our eyes, especially from an early age, the brain can redirect its perceptive energies in other directions. Without the distraction of external images, the subtle inner eye can gradually become more active. In spiritual teachings, this refers to a very real energy center known as the sixth chakra or ajna, often simply called the third eye. It's exactly where ancient traditions say it is, between the eyebrows, behind the brow bone, right near the pineal gland. The idea is that the third eye plays an extremely important role in intuition, in receiving information from the entire invisible space around us and everything beyond sight and beyond our 5 classical senses. And if the pineal gland is the biological counterpart of this energy center, then the connection between Baba Vanga's blindness and her heightened inner perception could be anatomical. And maybe that's exactly what happened to Vanga. Imagine it as a radio picking up invisible waves. In the same way, Baba Vanga seemed to receive signals from certain layers of consciousness, of information. That's how she was able to describe people she had never met. She immerses herself in that space, which also has different versions, different probabilities, energies that interact. The information comes out. In exactly this way, she described places she had never been to or events that hadn't happened yet. In a moment, we'll list them. One fascinating part of her gift was the presence of what she called the forces. Sometimes, different from her usual sessions, she would fall into a super deep state and quietly say, "The forces have let me go." She said these forces controlled when she could speak, what she could say, and how much of someone's future she could reveal. She spoke about them with deep respect, as if they were her protectors at the same time. And her master. She says she sees the little ones who are always around her, but sometimes the big ones appear, whose presence makes her feel completely exhausted and weak. And once she said that the spirits don't allow her to live like other women. "I had a husband," she admits, "but I haven't been with a man. The spirits didn't allow it." Vanga also often talks about the voice, a clear presence that seems to guide her during her sessions. The voice differs from the spirits. She describes it this way.
To talk with. This voice that you hear?
This voice, him too. Now he's here, still here, and tomorrow he'll be here.
At what age is this voice?
For the first time in 18 years.
Is this his first time speaking in 18 years? Yes.
We talk and talk for years.
Several times, Vanga states that the voice she hears belongs to John Chrysostom, the great Christian preacher from the 4th century. And her sister Lyubka confirms that Vanga truly believed that it was him who appeared and ordered her to start telling people who was alive and who was dead. The idea is, we can make a reference here, an analogy, to make it easier to understand this voice. Imagine you're driving your favorite car or the car you currently have. Imagine that this voice, this energy, this essence, which is directly connected to you, no matter how you describe it, whether it's me, a specific entity, a particular name or personality that matches your filters, for example, Christ, which is very common. Let's imagine that right now the two of you are sitting and moving in your car. At one point, you simply switch roles. You get into the front seat, but you leave the steering wheel to the other self, and for a moment you switch roles. Then after a while you grab the wheel again and continue driving. It's the same feeling when we have similar cases of channeling or contact. According to Vanga, this voice not only helps her recognize the living and the dead, but also acts as a source of information, as we said, when the spirits of the deceased have no answer.
Do the dead speak to you?
Well, look how they're talking to you here, she says. My little daughter's like that, and you all are. The voice.
Does the voice talk about them, or do they speak to you directly?
You talk while he stays with me.
The dead themselves speak.
Now,
Not a voice to speak for them.
the voice speaks when it's needed, when they don't know.
When they don't know what to say?
Not what to say. When they don't know. Let's say now you come for cenote, you don't know where the cenote is. He tells me, say it, he's dead. He just says, say it, dead, and I have to say how he died. He died, but even if someone died in front of me, I'd still have to explain how it happened.
It's still unclear whether her voice and her powers were the same thing. In my personal opinion, they weren't. But tell me what you think. Vanga never really makes a clear distinction, but... Anyway, such transmissions or such contact did happen, and the idea that the pineal gland is a portal between worlds becomes clearer with stories like hers. But what if that's not all? What if that's not the whole story? What if her brain isn't adapting? What if something or someone is speaking through her? That brings us to the idea already known to everyone as channeling. We say it once again. It's already a much more recognizable term. In other words, channeling, that means to allow information, insight, or energy to pass through you from something not physical. Some describe it as contact with higher beings, others as contact with a collective consciousness, spiritual guides, or what many simply call the higher self. Many people believe that Baba Vanga shared her predictions precisely through channeling. When we look at life through this lens, many things start to make sense. The trance states she would fall into, the fatigue after the sessions, the fact that she couldn't control when the information would reach her and when it wouldn't. All of these are common characteristics of the channeling state. Suddenly, something speaks through you and your voice changes. You don't remember exactly what you said when you come out of that state. You have what's called a blank spot, or you remember the general meaning and can convey it, but you lose the details. And if we remember that she talks about the forces and the voice, this idea doesn't sound all that impossible. Maybe Baba Vanga just didn't know that everything she was doing was called channeling. That's why she used words that made sense to her. In the conversation with Professor Shipkovensky, which was recorded, Vanga directly asks if the doctors can tell her what it is that she does. Because her brain works differently, which we see as absolute proof that she really doesn't understand what is happening and passing through her, she just does it. And to some extent, that's the reason why she works so successfully.
That's your voice, Doctor. What do I think? I think that's your voice. You doctors shine, we say the dollar, my dear. Here's the illness. I look at it the way you look at me. I see the sore spot and recognize what it is. I'm a mother and doctor. Understand me if you can. It can affect me both day and night.
Channeling is no longer confined to esotericism. In recent years, it has started to attract attention, serious attention from scientists, not to determine whether it is real, but to study whether the information received during channeling can be useful for science and for all of us. While doctors like Helane Labe and Luciano Pedercoli were trying to answer this question, they came to some other conclusions. In their experimental study from 2023, they asked a group of channelers to enter a channeling state and answer various scientific questions. Then they compare these answers and realize that the answers do not match. If we think about the idea that many people believe channeling requires reaching a higher vibrational state, it makes sense that not everyone can reach the same level, even among channelers. Here, The assumption is that each of them has connected to a different source, but since we know that we live in a common information flow, then how? That is possible. The bits of information we receive can be decoded by the brain in different ways, depending on a person's perceptions or so-called filters. That's why when you listen to Vanga, she conveys the information as it is given to her and as she understands it. But it's not an absolute truth. But for those who allow themselves and accept it as the truth, suddenly it becomes completely real for them. He tells a woman asking about her missing husband, for example, subscribe.
You'll cry for years. Let's see more. You'll cry for years. Stay the same. You'll cry for years. Thank you. Subscribe to our... Subscribe.
Subscribe to our channel. When he sees that someone has no way to get better, he says, that's how you'll stay, or the end for you is bad. And then he says, quickly, quickly, come on, bring the next one. Probably because it's hard for her to watch too. People suffering. And that's because we all know very well that no matter what is given to you from the outside world, if you don't accept it yourself and don't make that choice, no one can really help you. And if you don't allow certain things to be possible, no matter what happens, no matter what you're told, no matter what information or experiences you're given, for you, it will all just be empty words. And so the form of channeling of Baba Vanga is really quite specific, and she accesses realms in space where the dead, as entities, are still around their loved ones, and she sees them. They appear to her directly as soon as the person stands in front of her. In the recordings, we hear her discuss them, say they're right in front of her, relay their words directly, and sometimes let them speak through her. She changes her intonation, her voice. If it's a child's, for example, it becomes more squeaky, and in this way she proves to people that it's not actually her, she's just conveying this information.
Dr. Lamoto, Peter! She's asking for you, Dr. Lamoto, yes. My biggest wish is to have a bicycle. I prayed for a year, but I didn't get one.
Grandma Vanga often spoke about the emergence of new diseases, the outbreak of future wars, and even about the end of the world as we know it. These were not ordinary predictions. These visions reached far beyond her life and even ours. She spoke about upcoming centuries, about events that no one alive today will witness. She spoke about pandemics caused by ancient viruses released from the melting ice, about old diseases disappearing and new ones rising from the sea. Hey, not all of her visions come from Earth. Vanga talks about contacts with beings from far away, some from other worlds, others from different realities. She never described them in exact detail, but she says they are intelligent, peaceful, and deeply, deeply familiar with human life. Vanga mentions one specific place, Vamfim, the planet which she says is far beyond our solar system. She says that the name came to her during what she calls a transmission. She calls the Vamfim beings observers, not enemies. They were interested in Earth and had been visiting it for a long time. According to her, they left knowledge hidden in ancient writings, stone structures, and sacred places around the planet. And if we look around, the place is completely filled. The truth about the world and the cosmos must be sought in the old sacred books. These beings did not use language. They used light and thought to communicate. To receive their messages, Vanga says that a person needs to be silent, focused, and in the right state of mind. She believes that her blindness helped her develop these abilities. Since she couldn't see the physical world, she became more aware of what couldn't be seen by us. When one door closes, two new ones open, right? In these messages, she shares that she sees parts of Earth's future. Between 2250 and 2300, She believes humanity will receive a signal from another world. She says scientists in Hungary will discover it. Soon after, contact will be made not through conflict, but through shared knowledge. However, nowadays we know that this is one of the possibilities and one of the possible parallel realities. But if we are ready, and that depends on us, contact can happen much sooner. Vanga said that these beings will not come with spaceships. They would appear through energy, frequency, and thought. She believed that future technology would not work with fuel or fire, but with vibrations. This kind of science, she says, will come only when people are ready, not just with tools, but with understanding. When asked where this knowledge comes from, she always answers that it was given to her and she did not seek it. But just think about that. Isn't it obvious that Baba Vanga was describing channeling the whole time? The only difference is that she didn't know the term we use today. We changed the terms to explain the same phenomena. Let's discuss Baba Vanga's fulfilled prophecies. Subscribe to our channel. Subscribe to our channel. People close to her said Vanga claimed she saw blood, shattered glass, and mentioned shooting on the move. It is said that she tried to send a message to Jacqueline Kennedy, warning her about the danger. It is not clear whether the message reached her, but the prediction coincides with the events of November 22, 1963, in Dallas. Before 1980, Vanga made another prediction. She said, at the beginning of the century, in August 1999, Kursk will be covered with water and the whole world will mourn for it. At that time, people assumed she meant the Russian city of Kursk, but a year later, in August 2000, a Russian submarine named Kursk sank during naval exercises in the Barents Sea. All 118 crew members died. The meaning of her prophecy, which was once unclear, suddenly made perfect sense. Her insight also covers South Asia. In 1969, she describes a vision involving a woman in an orange-yellow dress. The dress will destroy her. I see an orange-yellow dress in the smoke and in the fire. She doesn't name a country or a person, but later followers associate the statement with Indira Gandhi, the Prime Minister of India at that time. On October 31, 1984, Gandhi was killed by her bodyguards. On the day of her death, she was dressed in saffron color, exactly as Baba Vanga described. In 1989, she says, "Horror, horror! The American brothers will fall after being attacked by the steel birds. The wolves will howl in a bush and innocent blood will flow." This is 12 years before the September 11 attacks against the World Trade Center in New York. The American brothers are widely interpreted as the Twin Towers, the steel birds as airplanes, and the mention of bushes as a reference to the English word bush and a symbolic mention of then-President George Bush. Certainly these things make us think about the connection between time and space, about how suddenly 10, 12, 20 years back in the past, when they come true, they prove that it is in itself an illusion and exists somewhere out there as a greater and eternal present.
It's very interesting, by the way. Let me make a side note. We're filming outside and we started while it was still light, and now we're adding a lamp. It's really cool because most likely by the end of the episode, it will be completely dark behind me.
But that's just part of the effects. Her predictions even reach the political circles. She claims that Raoul Wallenberg, the Swedish diplomat who disappeared after saving thousands of Jews during World War II, was killed on orders from the Kremlin. She even names Lavrenti Beria, the fearsome chief of Stalin's secret police, as the man behind this. At that time, this was considered speculation, but after the collapse of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, declassified documents confirmed that Wallenberg was likely executed and that Beria was indeed involved. Vanga also spoke about Mikhail Gorbachev before he became the leader of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. According to his witnesses, she told him, "You will rise high, you will break down the wall that divides people," and years later, he led perestroika, glasnost, and the fall of the Berlin Wall, all of which totally changed the entire political situation in Europe. While Vanga is alive, such statements attract attention and suspicion. For some, she is a miracle, but for others, a problem. At the end of the 1960s, Baba Vanga's house in the village of Rupite became a gathering place not only for villagers, but also for diplomats and politicians, scientists and foreign intelligence officers. She never took money from Bulgarians, but foreign guests often brought gifts or donations. By the way, isn't it strange that so many influential people came to see her year after year and kept coming back? That was the problem in communist Bulgaria. The state authorities, it was proud of scientific socialism, of materialism, and didn't know what to do with Vanga. On one hand, she was extremely popular among the public. On the other hand, her growing influence, the international attention she attracted, made her seem threatening. At that time, some party officials accused her of being a charlatan, others believed she might be a spy. After all, how could a blind woman from a small village know so much about military events, political figures, and even things outside the country? Hello, I want to sincerely thank each one of you who takes the time, resources, and attention to follow everything we do every week. I want you to know that we deeply appreciate it, and it truly means a lot, both to me and to the people around me. If you would like to support us, you can do so on our updated website, inra.bg, in the donation section with PayPal, EasyPay, or Stripe. However you find it best, we truly appreciate every choice made in this direction, and thank you for everything we are accomplishing together. Thanks to you as well. In 1967, the Bulgarian Academy of Sciences began to monitor her very closely. Psychologist Georgi Lozanov, director of the Institute of Suggestology, was assigned to observe her work. Although his reports were never published in full, it is believed that he found her success in describing personal information to be surprisingly high. Still, of course, not everyone is convinced. According to her relatives, there were times when the local authorities tried to forbid her from seeing people at all. It is claimed that one mayor warned her that if she continued, she would be sent to prison or to a psychiatric hospital. However, Vanga did not back down. She claims that her gift comes from a power higher than the government and that she will only stop when that power tells her to. For many years, Baba Vanga lived on the edge of official society, but in 1967, everything changed. That year, a confidential government document vanishes. It was carried by a courier who claimed he lost it somewhere along the way. However, the paper contained sensitive information, and if it fell into the wrong hands, the consequences could be serious. A full search was launched, but nothing was found. Some government officials suggested asking Vanga whether they wanted to or not. They are naturally skeptical, but also desperate. Do they visit her secretly so no one knows? Vanga listens to the situation. She pauses, then calmly gives instructions. "It's under a flat stone near the bend in the road," she said. They follow the instructions and find the document exactly where she said. After that, the state could no longer deny her accuracy. She was no longer just a village clairvoyant. Is there any evidence that she was useful from that moment on? Baba Vanga became not just accepted by the government, but also protected by it. In 1967, Vanga was appointed as an official state employee. She was supervised by the Institute of Suggestology. Since then, every visit, every session, every word she spoke to the public was recorded and monitored. She practically became a government employee on a salary, but not in the usual way. She is not allowed to accept private payments for what she does. The state charges fixed fees instead. 10 leva for a Bulgarian citizen and $50 for visitors from Western countries. The money went directly to the government. She lived modestly in the same simple house, wore the same plain clothes, and grew herbs in her garden. She was interested in neither money nor fame. The only thing she cared about was helping people. More people arrived: writers, scientists, actors, soldiers, and foreign guests. One of her most famous visitors was Vyacheslav Tikhonov, the legendary Soviet actor. Without any prompting, Vanga told him something that Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, had secretly whispered to him. Later, he admitted that no living person knew that sentence. He was convinced Vanga's gift was real. Russian writer Valentin Sidorov also visited. He came with doubts, but Vanga described his childhood, including details he had never shared. She even described a missing manuscript that he thought was lost forever. Later, when the manuscript was found and published, he publicly stated that science cannot explain what he saw and experienced in Rupit. Leonid Leonov, a famous Soviet writer, came to Vanga while he was writing his last book, The Pyramid. She tells him, "Be calm. After this book is finished, your journey will come to an end." Leonov postponed finishing the manuscript for years. When he finally finishes, he passes away shortly after. Alla Demidova asks Vanga about a new role, but Vanga responds with something unexpected. "You're not an actress, you're a scholar of the soul." At that time, she didn't understand what Vanga had said, but years later she left acting and those words took on a greater meaning. Svetoslav Rerich, son of the renowned Russian mystic Nikolai Rerich, arrived skeptical but left fully convinced. Vanga spoke about his father's personal writings, never published and known only to the family. Svetoslav says that she is connected to what his father calls the hierarchy of light, and the list goes on. Vanga never changed in one respect. When the government brought her new furniture, she sent it back. When her assistants made money in her name, she didn't say anything, even though she knew. "We don't need to accumulate wealth," she says. "There is sun and plenty for everyone on earth." A large part of the money collected in her name went to the church she dreamed of, St. Petka. Poverty is cvete.
Don't celebrate wealth.
Poverty allows you to rejoice in children, friends, and relatives, but wealth makes the soul sick.
Well, I sold myself for money. You're a golden person. I sold myself for money. I sold myself for work. For her, you give up furniture. For her, you give up apartments. For her, you give up cars. You give up everything for her.
How can someone surrounded by power and influence remain untouched by them? And just when it seemed that her influence had reached its peak, someone even more important came to her door. Lyudmila Zivkova. Lyudmila is the daughter of Todor Zivkov, the longtime communist leader of Bulgaria. In the 1970s and early 1980s, she played a powerful role in Bulgarian politics. But Lyudmila was different from most leaders. She wasn't that interested only in politics and power. She was deeply interested in culture, spirituality, art, and ancient history. She believed that people need not only progress, but also meaning. Lyudmila studied ancient civilizations. She supported museums, research projects, and even schools of Eastern philosophy. And when she first met Baba Vanga, something changed in her. She sat in the small house in Rupit, listened, asked questions, and took notes. Vanga spoke about Lyudmila's past, about her health, about the objects in her pocket that no one could see. These visits became regular. The two women, one an influential political figure, the other a frail psychic, formed a strange connection. Then, in 1981, a man came to Baba Vanga's house. He was carrying an old map, yellowed with age. There were symbols on it, some of which resembled ancient script, probably Egyptian. He told Vanga he was seeking a treasure. Usually, Vanga didn't have patience for this type of people, but this time she made an exception. She touched the map and told the man that it was fake. However, after he left to bathe in the local hot springs, she did something unusual for her. She asked her niece, Krasimira Stoyanova, to secretly make copies of the map. Later that same day, Vanga told her niece that the map did not lead to gold or treasures.
She pointed to something much older and much more important. This map was not about treasure, but about a script still undeciphered, which was inscribed on the inside of a stone sarcophagus. And it was placed there by people who came by water from Egypt. The sarcophagus was buried deep, and all of them were killed, pierced. According to her, blood flowed in streams, and that's how the earth was cemented to preserve the secret.
According to Vanga, these people came to what is now the Stranja mountain near the border between Bulgaria and Turkey. And there they buried a sarcophagus. Vanga says that this sarcophagus preserves the history of humanity. Another idea is to make us think about how sacred Bulgaria actually is, how special this place is. Lyudmila takes it seriously when she finds out. She supports cultural and spiritual research throughout Bulgaria, but this was different. If Vanga was right, this could change the way the whole world understands history, not just Bulgaria. Lyudmila shared her story with her close circle, including a man named Krastyu Mutavchev. They agreed to keep things secret, but Lyudmila wanted to find the place described by Vanga. The place that Vanga described is near a large ancient settlement, the highest peak in the Bulgarian part of the Stranja mountain. A small mountain near the border with Turkey, a path leading to a meadow, wild vegetation, and underneath there is a large rock about 4 meters wide and 5 meters high. This place was hard to reach, covered in forests and wild terrain, much like here. Even worse, it was near the Turkish border, which meant it was a military zone with restricted access. Naturally, ordinary people weren't allowed in, but Lyudmila had the power to arrange plenty of access. At the end of the spring of that same year, the small team made up of researchers, archaeologists, and security personnel traveled to the site. Some say they were blindfolded during parts of the journey, so they wouldn't be able to reveal the exact location later. One of those present was Vanga's niece, Krasimira. Vanga gave them clear instructions. She says,
If you go, let it be on May 5th. I asked, why May 5th? Because of the celestial bodies. You need to watch the first rays of the sun and the moon.
They arrived at the rock, a large stone, about 4 meters wide and 5 meters high, just as Vanga described. At sunrise, a ray of light passed through the trees and struck the rock. Slowly, 3 circles lit up, arranged in the shape of a triangle. At moonrise, the same thing happened in reverse order. And then the rock started to glow from within. Witnesses say that 3 figures, like holograms, appeared inside the rock. The first one was standing upright. He held a glowing sphere, and the others on something like a throne. Is he wearing a tall hat, or does he at least look like the Egyptian pharaohs? According to later writings to Vanga's relative, Krasimira, these holograms are not imaginary. They looked alive, as if made of moving light inside the stone.
What we were seeing was so impossible and unbelievable. We were stunned. The eyes see something that the brain refuses to accept. It's just not possible. And we're close, less than 2 meters away from this rock. We're practically looking at it face to face.
For Lyudmila, that was enough to believe that someone really had buried something there. She wanted to dig, to uncover a truth she believed could change humanity. But Grandma Vanga warned her again. It's not time to dig. The world is not ready for that knowledge. Lyudmila still refused to listen. She ignored Grandma Vanga's warning, and that ended up being her biggest mistake. She orders the excavations to begin. However, as soon as the workers start digging the tunnels, things start to go wrong. The nearby spring suddenly overflowed. Water flooded the site and the tunnel collapsed. But Lyudmila still thought this was just an accident, a setback. Grandma Vanga disagreed with her. They were warned, knowledge is protected by something ancient. It's not just earth and stone, it's memory. Soon after, another tragedy happens. Lyudmila Zhivkova dies suddenly. She was only 38 years old. The official cause is a brain hemorrhage, but many people believe she was poisoned. Some say she broke something that was never meant to be touched. After Lyudmila died, excavation stopped. The military arrived, sealed the site, and explosives detonated during the process. In the end, Baba Vanga turned out to be right once again. For years, people remained silent. Over time, more information about the 1981 expedition emerged, and Krasimira Stoyanova, Vanga's niece, and Krastyu Motavchev later published accounts of what happened. And although some details differ, both agree that Baba Vanga led them to a place of great significance. They describe it as something ancient and probably not of human origin. Of course, it's good to mention here the legend of the goddess Bastet, who is often depicted with the head of a lioness or a cat. In ancient Egypt, Bastet was regarded as the protector of women, fertility, and hidden knowledge. Her temples were known for containing valuable objects, animal remains, and secret rituals. Why would an Egyptian goddess be in the distant Stranja mountain thousands of kilometers from Egypt? That's probably what you're wondering right now. Baba Vanga's vision suggests Bastet's story extends beyond regular history. She believes that Bastet is a real being of non-human origin, who was once respected by many ancient civilizations. Once, Vanga described how people from Egypt came by sea to Bulgaria, bringing a sarcophagus covered with unknown symbols and knowledge that is not of this world. Some suggest that Bastet may have been a Thracian princess with Egyptian roots, who traveled north and was later revered in Egypt because of her unusual abilities. In this version, Stranja Mountain was her original burial place. Because of this, some believe that the place was also a portal, left by other beings to store information about human and cosmic history. After 1981, Baba Vanga never spoke about the place of Bastet again. But the story doesn't end here. In a note kept by her niece Krasimira, Baba Vanga describes a vivid, unusual vision. A long time ago, 3 envoys, that's the name Vanga uses for the extraterrestrials, came to Earth with Anello to hide 2 statues that were important to them. One of them got worried because they were too visible. The other envoy replied, "Don't you see that people are blind?" This raises a lot of questions. Is it possible that these are the same holographic beings seen during the event in Golyamo Gradište? What do they mean by people being blind? Maybe it means that we are not ready to understand. Before her death, Baba Vanga uttered one last prophecy. It was written down by her niece, Krasimira. The time of miracles will come, and science will make great discoveries in the field of the immaterial. We will witness great archaeological discoveries that will fundamentally change our understanding of the world and ancient times. The hidden gold will surface, but the water will vanish. That is destiny. The village of Zlatolist is a small village near the Greek border. Fewer than 50 people live there, but some see it as an extremely important energy site. In the center of the village is the Church of St. Georgi. It's simple, but according to many, it's one of the most sacred places in Bulgaria. The reason is a woman, Prepodobna Stoina. Similar to Baba Vanga, Stoina loses her eyesight in her youth. Later, she begins to have visions, to hear voices, to levitate, and to help the people who come to her. She spends most of her life in a small room above the church and rarely leaves it. There are many stories about Stoina. Some say that she would float while she prayed. She would rise above the ground. Some thought she could heal with her touch. There are many stories about Stoina. If you're interested, you can find lots of information and fascinating books online. Overall, extremely. Can you personally? A woman who can heal, levitate, and demonstrate the abilities of each one of us in a very specific way. Baba Vanga visits Stoina when she is still young and unknown to the world. At that time, Vanga still didn't fully understand what was happening to her and what awaited her. She had lost her sight and was beginning to experience things that others couldn't explain to her. In a golden leaf in Stoina's room above the church, Vanga found clarity and began to accept her path. Stoina told Vanga that her visions were not a curse, but a responsibility. Vanga remembered these words for the rest of her life. She later called Stoina her spiritual teacher. And after the death of Reverend Stoina in 1933, her grave became a place visited for guidance. Vanga often sent people there, especially those who were confused, or those who were looking for an answer in a different way. Inside the church, there were several unusual paintings in gold leaf. One of them shows Saint Christopher with the head of a dog. Another one shows a devil in a cart pulled by a man. These aren't typical Orthodox icons. The reason is unknown, or who painted them, but they match the unusual feeling that many people describe when they enter the church. I'm curious if you've been there. Vanga always said that these places were chosen by a higher power. She said that the earth has veins of power, and that places like Belentaj, Zlatolist, and Rupite are places where this energy comes to the surface. She believed that these are places where the barrier between worlds is weaker and messages from the energy world can pass through more easily. Thousands of people came to visit her over the decades, and many of them didn't ask about future events, but about their deceased loved ones. And many left saying that Vanga didn't just speak about their loved ones, but with them. One of the most memorable moments happened when a man with a broken heart came to Vanga because he and his wife couldn't have children. Instead of answering, Baba Vanga remains motionless for a while. Just a few minutes later, she says, "Your mother is here. Tell my son not to worry. The child is coming, actually two, a boy and a girl, soon." The man was shocked, of course. It came out of nowhere. Vanga mentioned his mother's name. She repeated a lullaby that his mother used to sing. She even used a nickname that no one else knew. And what's even more interesting, months later, his wife became pregnant with twins. Vanga always said that this work comes with a price. After days of receiving visitors, especially those who wanted her to talk to the dead, she often felt weak. Sometimes she had to rest for a whole day. She says she feels the pain of the people who come to her and the sadness of the deceased. Vanga took care of herself in simple ways. She washed her hands, lit candles, and often sat alone for hours. She said that this helped her recover after difficult sessions. She told her niece that every time she spoke with the dead, it was necessary to close that door. Vanga did not see herself as special. She just said she was a receiver. She lived simply until the end of her life. She often felt like a victim, but it didn't bother her. What affected her the most was not poverty or blindness, but the burden of too much knowledge. Those close to her say that her gift was paid for. She never saw it as something to be proud of. She called it a responsibility, sometimes even a punishment. She believed that seeing the future and people's destinies caused pain. More pain at times than peace. She said she could see when someone would die, but she wasn't always allowed to say it.
Now, I can't tell him first. Did he die here first? Is courage easy for you to say? And do you always say that he died?
She believed that every person had a certain path, but life gave signs like illnesses, dreams, accidents, to help people change their direction. Her job was both to see and to help people notice these signs. And let everyone choose for themselves what is most necessary for them. Let everyone know that nothing remains unpaid in this world. People commit crimes and think that no one has seen them. That's not the case. Everything is seen, and the time comes when the wrongdoer must pay. Those who know her say that she treated everyone with respect, no matter who they were. She called everyone my children. Sometimes she was blunt, but always she felt responsible for every single person who came to her. Her moral values were strong. She couldn't read or write, but she had a sharp sense of right and wrong. She believed words have power. Vulgar language, she said, poisoned the air and harmed both the speaker and the listener. She also believed that lying, laziness, and hatred made people sick, not only in the soul, but also in the body. Interestingly, a woman who had so much strength in her hands never used it to help herself. Grandma Vanga never tried to escape her own fate. Do not complain about the suffering you are experiencing. Suffering acts as a purifier, similar to a piece of clothing that not clean unless washed. When she spoke about death, she did so without fear. For her, it was just another step in a much deeper journey. And in 1990, she calmly told her loved ones that she would die on August 11, 1996. No one wanted to believe her, but she repeated it with the same quiet confidence. When the day finally came, it happened exactly as she had said. Her health began to deteriorate. In 1994, doctors found signs of a serious illness and diagnosed her with breast cancer. She refused treatment. For someone who has helped so many, this surprises many people. For Vanga, the decision was clear. She believed that your life belongs to God. She often said that she was born with the role to serve, not to control her own path. For another 2 years, even though she is in pain, she continues to meet with people, sometimes 3 or 4 in a day. Her strength is fading. She can barely get out of bed. Still, something inside her keeps her going. Her niece says that she will only leave when her mission on Earth is complete. On August 3rd, 1996, her family insisted that she be taken to the hospital. It was one of the best hospitals in the country, in Sofia. Even in the hospital, she remained herself and asked for little. Just a piece of bread, a glass of water, and to be washed and anointed with oil, as if she was preparing for a final ritual. On the night between August 9th and 10th, something changed. Baba Vanga had a dream, which she later shared with her relatives. In her dream, she saw a rider on a white horse. This messenger said that her mission is finished and she won't be alone. She passed away the next morning, on August 11, 1996, just as she had said she would 6 years earlier. Later, those close to her said that in the morning, Baba Vanga calmly said that she was ready. Soon after, she passed away. Even at the very end, she didn't want any ceremony or monuments. She left this world just as Edushwa. She didn't need honor because she gave it to others through her service. Her words helped many people, and that's what really mattered. Everyone goes through difficult times, even the richest and the strongest. That's why a person should strive to be humble so they don't die in the embrace of evil. So think about that. Maybe in the end, nothing else really matters that much. Because as Grandma Vanga said, what kind of person you are doesn't matter. It's important to be a good person. In her final days, Grandma Vanga often said Earth isn't the universe's center and humans aren't alone. She says that souls continue to exist after death and that all life on this planet or on others is connected by an invisible energy. She believes everything, life, thought, time, and space is connected. Most nations have their own star providing light energy, though there are exceptions. Some nations have a planet instead of a star. The new era, which even Baba Vanga predicted, requires above all a new way of thinking, a different type of consciousness. Quality people who truly strive to broaden their worldview and connect with the harmony of everything around them. Today we live in a time with information more accessible than ever and humanity's collective consciousness frequency rising, is slowly but boldly beginning to rise. Thanks to life and the dedication of people like Baba Vanga, we now have the chance to explore the deeper layers of our own being. Perhaps her greatest gift is not only in what she was able to see, but also in what she showed us we could become. If we choose to work on ourselves, on our true selves, to become better beings, then maybe, just maybe, we too can help bring forth the golden age of consciousness she mentioned. Because otherwise, I'll allow myself to quote her one last time to finish. An extremely powerful line. We must not allow life on earth to perish because of our short-sightedness. The time has come for us to make our maximum effort. So we can be free of hostility, envy, and hatred. That is the intention. Even if we don't want to, life must move forward. If we don't understand this with our minds, the inexorable laws of the cosmos will impose it on us. Baba Vanga exemplifies what we carry within us. My personal opinion is that she appeared as an exceptional contrast polarity in times when there was a need for a strong push and powerful whirlwind in this energetic and spiritual direction shows that first, it's not just for the initiated. Second, it's not hidden. Third, it's not a myth, but something happening alongside all of us living ordinary lives. And actually, this is not something separate from us. All these possibilities are encoded in our mind, in our brain, in our energy field around us, and in the entire potential that exists in and around us. Because as the ancient Hermetics tried to remind us and to seal it in time, what is outside of you is inside of you. What is above is what is below, and what is below is what is above. All things are linked in a harmonious, multi-layered system. But we are the ones who, for some unknown reason, seem to keep everything around us divided every day. My advice and my reminder with this episode and the example of Baba Vanga is really to try to be more united and to see this unity in everything we do, whether we're drinking water or making a gesture for someone we love. Baba Vanga, in Minds from Eternity, I bow and thank you for listening to this story. And I am extremely happy that I have the opportunity to share with so many people and to step out of the layers of our own consciousness for such things to happen, because they are needed both for Bulgaria and for the whole world. We aren't afraid to be ourselves, make mistakes, or do strange things. For example, today we set out while it was still light, looking for a place, and in the end, it's so dark now you can't see anything around me. Let's allow ourselves to listen to what's inside us and not define ourselves by the outside world, because we are capable of so much more. As long as we wish for it and accept it as our own natural nature. Until the next diary.